Breaking right now, an astonishing plot by Prince William to finally deal with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. RadarOnline is reporting that the Prince of Wales plans to strip Harry and Meghan of their Sussex title when he becomes king. Hallelujah. Analysis from Brittany, editor of the Royal News Network, in just one moment. But first, let me talk you through this absolutely fascinating, I would argue, bombshell reporting from RadarOnline, who are doing really good work lately. They report ruthless Prince William. By the way, I don't agree with their characterization of Prince William as ruthless. I would argue he's just being sensible. But anyway, they say ruthless Prince William is eagerly awaiting the day he'll be crowned Britain's next king, as he's raring to strip the Duke and Duchess of Sussex of their titles if they ever again publicly rip the royal family, RadarOnline can reveal. They quote a courtier who tells the publication the king was especially stung by Harry labelling him an emotionally cold father in his scathing memoir Spare. But the monarch is very concerned about his image and fares backlash from his subjects. That's why he'd never dare take away Harry's Sussex title despite all the hurt he's caused. The courtier revealed Charles, 76, worries he'd be seen as petty if he yanked back the titles granted by his beloved mother, but hard-nosed William has no such concerns. The insider shared behind the scenes, people are saying that the royals have quietly sanctioned the title removal if Harry and Meghan step out of line again. The removal would require an act of parliament, but those in the know say the palace has already called several secret meetings to discuss the possibility and put an actionable plan in place. The royals are absolutely furious that Meghan continues to flaunt the Sussex title for her and Harry's own self-gain. An insider confirmed to RadarOnline, when King Charles does pass away, it's a certainty that William will pull the trigger and strip her and Harry of their HRH status. Now, they also report that Harry's in trouble. He misses his family terribly, but no one is speaking to him anymore, which was, of course, reporting which really stunned us earlier in the week.
This is wild. According to RadarOnline, Prince William isn't just sitting back and letting the drama play out. He's allegedly planning to strip Harry and Meghan of their Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles the minute he becomes king. And y'all, if that's true, we are talking about a royal nuke being prepped behind palace walls. Now let's unpack this. The report says that King Charles has held back on title removal because he's afraid of public backlash. He doesn't want to look like a cold-hearted father in the wake of Harry's memoir Spare. But William? Apparently he's not worried about optics. He's focused on protecting the crown.
Brittany, wow. Obviously, there has been a feeling that Charles probably doesn't want to go nuclear. He's always been a little bit too soft, in my humble opinion, when dealing with the fallout of Harry and Meghan's quite obvious breaches of the Sandringham Agreement. But William isn't going to take that, is he? Do you think he would be right if he does decide to go through with this and strip Harry and Meghan of their titles once he takes the throne?
Yeah, I've always been of the opinion, Dan, that it would probably be actually William who enacts any sort of change. I think Charles in this instance is acting more, you could say, as a father and less like a king. He really needs to actually take the threat of the Sussexes a bit more seriously, because what the Sussexes do is they dilute the royal brand. Any company will tell you if they have a brand phrase or something created connected to their brand and somebody's ripping them off, they go after them with full force. And I think the royals should treat Harry and Meghan very much the same. I just don't think Charles is going to do it. It will fall to William. And I definitely don't think William is eager to become king. Now, he might be eager to try and get a more permanent solution regarding Harry and Meghan, but I feel like there's just this weird thing where everybody's just staying as status quo. It's like, we're just going to let them go. We're just going to see what happens. And they need to take it more seriously in this modern age. Things move so quickly. And by the time they catch up, they might be caught completely flat-footed if they don't take the threat that Harry and Meghan pose with their cosplay royal brand a bit more seriously here. But Charles obviously is dealing with cancer. He's just getting used to being king. So I understand why this is a process, but I really do hope they make a decision there pretty soon, because I think it's best for the whole family if William doesn't have to be the one that does it.
I completely agree, Brittany, but unfortunately, and look, I try and be very kind and understanding with King Charles when it comes to this, especially given the Queen has been so determined to shield him from stress, given stress is very bad when you have serious cancer. Of course, we know that Charles's cancer is very bad, Brittany. He might be living with this for the rest of his life. And I presume he keeps thinking that there's probably a way where this whole Meghan and Harry situation is resolved. And we know, for example, that when it came to the councillors of state, rather than actually having to strip Harry and Andrew of the duty, he just decided to add people to the list. But it is frustrating at the same time, because it's like, surely you have to think about the sanctity of the royal brand. We are in a brand-driven world. Harry and Meghan cheapen the brand on a daily basis. It's not even like the stuff they're doing with As Ever and Netflix and Lemonade Media is at all classy or royal. It's just tacky and revolting. So Brittany, I have been advocating for the removal of the titles from the moment they chose to leave the royal family, because unfortunately, I could always see what was coming.
Yes, and I always thought as well as it's just something they should have considered for the future, because they need to have some sort of, if somebody has a royal title, one of the problems with the whole bullying allegations against Meghan Markle in the palace is that there was no recourse for a principal. They couldn't really discipline a principal like they could an employee. And so it's like, well, what do they do? And I think one of the things that should be an option is going, hey, if you're part of this family, we welcome you. This is great. But if you step out of line, if you decide you want to pursue something else, I mean, we'll still support you, but you leave the titles at the door when you walk out, sort of like a job. And I know royalty isn't totally like that in some ways, but I think they need to be stricter in how they are dealing with members of the family, because then you can sort of avoid situations like this where everything really, really does spiral. And I don't think the monarchy was prepared for somebody like Meghan in the slightest. And when it comes to the kids, I think the answer here is very simple. And it protects Catherine and William's grandchildren as well from Charlotte and Louis, is to say, to have a title from the UK, you must be raised and educated in the United Kingdom. You can't be raised and educated in California and still call yourself a prince and princess. You must be raised and educated, have the UK culture in order to justify having those titles. That way, if somebody decides to leave, they know that walking out the door. But Harry and Meghan, even though she claims to hate everything royal, desperately, desperately clings to it. And it's sort of pathetic at this point that they're still using royal monograms and stuff like that. It's like, oh my gosh, guys, you left this 5 years ago. Like, you need to do something else now.
Secret palace meetings? That's how serious this has gotten. They're not talking what if. They're reportedly building a full-on plan. And let's be real, can you blame them? Meghan and Harry are using the Sussex name to push their brand, even after dragging the monarchy through the mud. This isn't just about hurt feelings anymore, it's about royal brand damage control. Look, I get it. Charles is a dad. He's also battling cancer. It makes sense that he's trying to keep the peace, avoid stress, and probably hopes Harry will eventually come back into the fold. But here's the reality. Hope isn't a strategy. And Meghan and Harry have made it crystal clear. They're not coming back.
And you claim you hate it too. That's the thing. You claim you hate it. Brittany, is it true that other royal families have those sorts of rules where you have to be educated or live in the country in order to remain on the line of succession?
Oh, fantastic question, Dan. This is definitely the case in Sweden. It's somewhere built into the constitution that the children must be raised and educated in country to keep their titles and places in the line of succession. So when it came to the case of Princess Madeline of Sweden, her family, one of her kids was born in actually New York City. Then they moved back to Sweden. They lived in London for a time, and then they spent 6 years in Florida and just relocated back to Sweden in 2024. And the government gave her a little bit of a leeway to raise her family as was appropriate for her husband's job and everything like that. But if they stayed away forever, yes, her children would lose their titles and places in the line of succession. So they made the decision to relocate back to Sweden in order, in part, to preserve that legacy. And so I don't know all the other families, I don't think they have quite the same rules, but a lot of the families have stripped lower members, so grandchildren of the monarchs who are born to the second and third child of their HRHs. This happened in Sweden. Actually, the second son of the crown prince and princess, he's just a His Highness instead of a His Royal Highness. You have in Denmark, the Queen's second son, those children were all stripped of their prince and princess titles and given, in that case, count and countess. So we have situations where this has been done, where people have been publicly stripped of their titles. There's a little bit of blowback, but people understand monarchies are all streamlining. This is well within reason for Charles and the family to do this. And I don't think anybody would really be all that upset about it.
Well,
Except for Harry and
Brittany,
Meghan, of course.
because look, monarchies have to modernize all the time. And what we've got to think about is that the previous rules that were in place in connection to the line of succession were, for example, if a royal family was driven out of the country because of a war. But there is now absolutely no rationale why a potential future head of state should be living in America. In fact, it goes totally against everything that the UK unsuccessfully fought for during the American Civil War. But anyway, let's not go into that. Then you also have the fact, Brittany, that Meghan actually is so determined to become a billionaire. Now, lots of people say, well, this is never going to happen. But my point is that that means she is going to do things that are increasingly tacky, increasingly awkward for the royal family. And you posted on this whole plan of hers this week saying you've got to give it to Meghan. The delusions of grandeur have always been strong with her. No, she won't be a billionaire, but we see again why she married Harry. If he's not aware that she just saw dollar signs and not love, then he is a fool. Brittany, I totally agree with you, by the way, but that's strong. So explain what you mean.
So when it comes to their marriage, and it's actually funny, I did a YouTube video on this ages ago that's still pretty popular, where Harry has little hearts around him and Meghan has little dollar signs. So it's always been the case that Meghan, I don't think, ever really was in love with Harry. She was in love with his title, his ability to make her more money, because she sort of flamed out as an actress. She knew she was aging out of the sex pot roles, and she was desperate for a rich, wealthy man because, to be quite frank, I don't think she had the talent to make it on her own. And so her desire was to find a guy, and Harry happened to be the fool to go for. But when you look at everything they've done, it's, especially this year, it's just an obvious soulish cash grab. I mean, trying to get people to follow affiliate links to buy her clothes, which I'm sure she designed in her throne room in her $15 million mansion, is ridiculous. She is just so desperate for money. She flaunts it. She wears all these bracelets and jewelry and everything. And he was just obviously somebody where she was so disappointed, I think, that he was just a lowly millionaire, that she wanted a billionaire. And yeah, she props him up sometimes. Yeah, I think he gets some love bombing from time to time. But I think what you'll see, especially last week when Meghan could have distracted the public a bit with her product line, she didn't, because it's all about protecting her. It's all about her and very little about him. This is why she separated him from his whole family, because it's all got to be about her. Heaven forbid that he maybe gets to go home and spend some time with his father and his stepmother and his brother. She won't let that, because to her, if he goes away, I think so is she worried that the money stream will go away as well, because she has to know too that the only reason they got any of those deals was because of his family, and that's it. It's not because of her talent. It's not really there. It's his family. And that's why she's gotten anything. And she just fails to recognize that time and time again. And Harry, once again, I will say, is an absolute fool if he hasn't realized at this point she married him solely for the money.
Brittany nails it when she says Charles is stuck in father mode. But William, he's ready to act like a king. And honestly, he should. The royal brand isn't just some old-fashioned concept. It's a business, a legacy, a national symbol. You can't have two rogue players out in California monetizing the monarchy while calling it oppressive. Exactly. And let's not forget, the minute Meghan needs press, she slaps a royal monogram on a jam jar and sells it for $. That's not royalty. That's reality TV influencer energy with a tiara on top. Here's where things get even more transparent. Meghan wants to be a billionaire. And she's reportedly going to do whatever it takes to get there. Affiliate links, luxury endorsements, new product lines, and every single one of them comes with a royal-sounding label.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Beautifully explained. I think what we've also seen, Brittany, of course, over the past week, is this idea that actually she has trapped him. And it's been very crafty and very strategic. But of course, by her saying, oh yeah, fine, H, you go and focus on your charities, which I'm going to screw up anyway, because I'm going to fall out with the head of Centre Bali. That's going to cause a total disaster. I'm going to totally hijack the Invictus Games to the point where all of the coverage is about me. And yeah, I'll go home a couple of days early, but that's my thing too. What she's done, Brittany, is effectively made it impossible for him to leave, because not only are the children in California, the money is all going to be with her. No plans for Harry to conduct any future products, sort of shows or anything with Netflix. That's off. And so this guy is becoming more cornered and more trapped by Meghan, because she is going to be holding the purse strings.
100%. Dan, he did himself so many disfavors by not being, let's say, more proactive on the financial front. I mean, he did his part. Spare, I think, was probably actually their biggest moneymaker overall. But the whole challenge is at this point is that he's stuck there. He's totally
Yes.
and completely stuck.
And
How
they're
much of his
burning
inheritance
through the
money?
cash, Brittany. They are
Yeah.
burning through this money because of the security stuff, because of their desire to fly in private jets.
Absolutely. And how much of it was his inheritance? How much has she burned through of that? And then they do have money coming in, but they burn through so much of it. You know, a maintenance on a home like that is constant. It's constant. It's all these little things. And then you have the lawn maintenance and the pool maintenance. And like I could go on and on and on. That house is a money pit. And they don't have enough talent really to bring much more to the table. And so I think the whole brand itself is a disaster. I think he's completely trapped. They also have children now. He's completely isolated and separated. And that is what she wanted. And he went along, I think, with it. Now, I do have some sympathy because I think there was probably a lot of manipulation involved to get to that point. But he's sort of made his bed and now he has to lie on it. So we'll see if he ever wakes up or not. But this is sort of, it's all about her. And that's always been the case. He's just, I think, now maybe really, really starting to recognize that, oh, all the love, all the everything that she's done, it's really wasn't about me, was it? No, she loved his title. She loved his money. She did not love him. In my opinion, I don't think she's ever really loved him.
Totally agree.
And this is where it gets sad. Harry might actually be waking up to what's happened. They say hindsight is 20/20. But in his case, it's more like he's been stumbling in the dark and now he's finally seeing the light. She didn't love him. She loved the title, the access, the platform. And now that they're isolated from the royals and bleeding support in Hollywood, Meghan is clinging harder than ever to the only brand that still brings clicks, the royal one. Brittany lays it out. Harry is stuck. The kids are in California. The deals were signed through her. He's not even lined up for any new projects. His memoir is done, the media value is fading, and there's no path back unless he completely detaches. This isn't just about Meghan being ambitious. It's about control. She has isolated him from his family, burned every bridge, and made herself the only person he can lean on. And let's be honest, that's not a partnership. That's a power play.
Totally agree. Because obviously, Brittany, when I was really digging into Meghan Markle's past, this is by the time she was in the royal family, what I soon discovered is that her utter desire had just been to find a famous British boyfriend. That is all she wanted. And it's hilarious when you think of the guys who she was looking at. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're nice guys. Matt Cardle, who won the X Factor here, he's now a touring West End performer. Max George, who was the lead singer of The Wanted, he now performs Wanted gigs with one other guy from the band. And Ashley Cole, the former professional footballer who was known as one of Britain's biggest love rats because of his failed marriage to Cheryl Cole, the former X Factor judge. So that was the sort of level of British man she was prepared to accept on her bizarre journey for fame in the United Kingdom. She obviously hit the jackpot with Prince Harry, and the poor guy fell for it hook, line, and sinker.
Mhm.
But Brittany, can we talk
He's a
about
fool.
the real royals for a moment? Because
Mhm.
there's growing concerns that King Charles, whose health is suffering, we know that incurable cancer that he's likely going to have to live with for the rest of his life. But he's such a hard worker, Brittany. And as a result, he continued, for example, to carry out 18 engagements in 10 days before he ended up in hospital. And the Sun's royal editor, Matt Wilkinson, has been reporting on the fact that actually there are members of the royal family who are desperate to pull Sophie in, sort of force King Charles to slow down. And he reports that the Sun understands eyebrows have been raised that Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, has not been asked to help on major jobs, despite sources saying she's chomping at the bit to do more. And I have to be honest, Brittany, it doesn't make sense to me. Sophie has been one of those absolutely solid, high-performing royals, learnt from the late Queen Elizabeth II, was a favourite of Queen Elizabeth II, received the Duchess of Edinburgh title when Edward eventually got his father's and his mother's wish. Remember, there was some time when Charles was considering not giving Edward and Sophie that title, but they got the title. Use them. They want to work. Let's turn them into stars of the royal family. They are a lovely family, Brittany. No marriage issues. Two lovely children who are completely devoted to the royal life. I just don't understand. Charles should not be should not be taking part in that number of engagements while undergoing really serious cancer treatment. It doesn't make sense.
I mean, I feel so bad for Charles because he had
I do
waited so
too. I
long to
do too.
become king.
Totally.
And to have this health setback is devastating. It's totally devastating. And the thing is, he wants to work. And I say bravo for wanting to work so hard. I think it's very, very admirable. And but I do think there's obviously avenues to bring in Sophie and Edward more on events. They don't get quite as much of attention, but if it helps Charles keep some of his energy, keep from extending himself and, winding up in hospital. I think that would be a marvelous thing to do. But at the same time, I understand his drive is like, I am king. I need to be seen, to be believed. That is what so many royals have done. And I admire that greatly. But we've also seen some sort of interesting movements as well, because voluntary abdication has become sort of somewhat, you could say, popular within certain families. And so I think I could see William doing that in the future with George, but unfortunately Charles, he will reign until the end, but I really hope he allows. Sophie is wonderful. She's a marvelous, marvelous royal, absolutely lovely. Edward seems completely lovely as well. And so allow them to take some of that burden. I know it's a challenge. I know Charles wants to make sure people don't think he's too sickly to do things. So you have this weird tug and pull here. I feel so sorry for Charles, but I just so admire him as well.
Back to William. This man is reportedly done playing nice. Secret palace meetings? Legal reviews? There's smoke here, which means there's fire. He knows that keeping the Sussex title alive is like handing over royal endorsement for a brand that now stands for lawsuits, family betrayal, and Netflix drama. And that's the real message here. Monarchies are evolving. Titles aren't participation trophies, they're earned and they come with expectations. If you walk out, you don't get to take the crown jewels of credibility with you. So what now? If William follows through, if he actually strips the titles, that's it. That's the final break. No more Duke and Duchess. Just Harry and Meghan of Montecito. And maybe that's what's needed. A clean break. Let them build something for real without clinging to the legacy they keep trashing.
No, I do too. Look, you wait your whole life, Brittany, to take on that role. You're so focused on your health. There is a real cruel irony in the fact that he's probably going to have to serve the majority of his reign while undergoing absolutely brutal cancer treatment. Yes, there's been huge medical advances, but he remains a man in his 70s. My heart goes out to him.
Mhm.
But sometimes you've got to be sensible in a situation like that.
Mhm.
Lean on your family members. Personally, I'm not in the camp of thinking the royal family needs to be narrowed down anymore. We already have a streamlined royal family. Anne is now in her 70s. We know how hard she
Mhm.
works. At some point, some of the burden is going to have to be lifted off her as well. William and Catherine obviously were not able to work to the same degree over the past few years. Personally, I think this is the time to empower the Edinburgh family. And I know this is a controversial one, Brittany, but I would also allow Princess Eugenie and Beatrice to take on formal royal
Mhm.
duties too. They've wanted to do it for a very, very long time. Why not? Why not?
100%. I think sort of the great challenge here is that Charles never adjusted for his streamlined vision after Harry and Meghan left. Once they left, I mean, love them or hate them, they left a huge void in sort of that younger generation. Because if you look at the royal family right now, the working royals, I mean, the average age, I think I calculated it once, is like in the mid 60s, late 60s, because you have the Duke of Kent, you have the Gloucesters, you have obviously Princess Alice doesn't really work anymore, but you have a very kind of, or Alexandra, excuse me. You have this very big cadre of working royals that has been totally streamlined down. And so I think Beatrice and Eugenie, I think especially Beatrice would love to be a working royal. I think her degree is in history. She has a great passion for the family. We saw her dedication in wearing the queen's dress to get married in. She got it redesigned. And so I think she would be a marvelous addition. Obviously, we have Lady Louise and you have James, who I think would both be great working royals as well. I mean, I question it because they're a bit too far down the line of succession, but at the same time, they just don't have many options right now. And Princess Anne is getting older, and you need somebody to take the place of Princess Anne, who does those simple bread and butter engagements that just goes to random little communities all the time to meet with people. There was actually a report a couple years ago talking about how that was actually probably one of the most impactful things for the monarchy are those little engagements, and they need members to do that. I think all of Catherine and William's children will be working royals. They'll have to be. I think William thinks they won't. They will because they desperately need
Yes,
a bigger
exactly. But
workforce
the
here.
thing is, Brittany, he is going to give them as much time as they want and
Mhm.
need.
Yes.
So we might be waiting another 15 years. We might be waiting 2 decades before
I,
George and Charlotte and Louis are full-time working royals. And I think William will give Charlotte and Louis the choice, by the way, whether they want to be or not. So the answer is there. It's staring you in the face. It's Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh. She's got a lovely family. She's ready to do it. The public loves her. Just do it. Seriously, just do it. We need some
Yep.
more boots on the ground in the British royal family.
Because at this point, the only thing keeping them in headlines is the very thing they said they hated, the royal family. That's it for this episode, folks. If this whole situation is starting to look like a royal soap opera to you, you're not alone. Hit that like button if you think it's time for William to take action. Drop a comment. Should Harry and Meghan lose their titles, or is that going too far? Subscribe for more uncensored takes. And trust me, the next royal twist is just around the corner.